All right, how's everybody doing? Happy Thursday. I just posted it up on Twitter, so a few of you will come in, but this is going to be recorded anyway. And I'm back in my hometown right now of Visalia, California. That's why the setup is a little bit different. Last week I was in Nashville. That's why the setup looked even different that time. And I think next week I'm going to be back in the Bay Area. But a lot to talk about again because a lot of articles have come out, and the 49ers have actually practiced since the last time that we talked. So that OTA practice on Tuesday was fun to be at, and it's obviously generated a lot of conversation. And the injury news has generated a lot of conversation because it seems that the 49ers, and especially their running back room, just cannot catch a break. Jeff Wilson, according to John Lynch, got up last Thursday, so exactly a week ago today, in the locker room, and he felt something pop in his knee, and his knee locked up, and he couldn't see anything, or he couldn't move his knee, and he couldn't really feel anything but pain in his knee after just getting up in the 49ers locker room, and it turned out to be a torn meniscus. That meant that Jeff Wilson underwent surgery on Friday. He's going to be out 4 to 6 months. So if you look at the timetable, the 49ers really can't expect Jeff Wilson back until like October, maybe November. I'm just saying mid-season. Bottom line is he's not going to be on that opening day roster, which solves a lot of roster logjam problems for the 49ers, not in the way that they wanted, but everybody was talking about Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon and all the rookies and where does JaMycal Hasty fit? Well, I'm not sure JaMycal Hasty fits on the 53-man roster even after the Jeff Wilson injury. But I think that Elijah Mitchell and Wayne Gallman both definitely fit on that 53-man roster if you had to cut it down today. And that's why I wanted to talk today, because I was able to finish up my two features on the 49ers running backs. Everybody knows that I wrote the Trey Sermon piece. It was a big deep dive a couple weeks ago. I promised to do a YouTube live after that one. We never quite got to it because I got too many Ambry Thomas questions for that article. So I just decided to wait till the dust settled here from everything and do it in tandem with a little talk about my Elijah Mitchell piece, another deep dive, which came out today. Let's start with some of the questions, though, before I get to my piece. What's the latest on Julio Jones and a possible trade to the 49ers? Well, the latest is that the Falcons have to trade Julio Jones after June 1st because the Falcons don't have any cap space, right? So they would incur a ton of dead money hit if they traded him before June 1st. So it'd be so bad that it'd actually be more expensive for the Falcons 2021 cap situation to trade Julio Jones before June 1st than it would be to keep him. So it makes absolutely no sense for Atlanta to trade him right now. That means you're going to see this trade after. You're going to see it next week at the soonest. And that's why the Falcons are already negotiating with teams right now, trying to figure out a few offers. Reportedly, there's a future first round pick on the table from somebody, if you want to believe that report. And a lot of NFL teams, if you want to believe another report, believe that Julio Jones will not command a first round pick. So, I mean, one was purely speculation. The one about Julio Jones not commanding a first round pick, that was a few days ago. And now there's a firm report saying that a source says, this is from ESPN, that a team has offered a future first round pick for Julio Jones. Now, could it be that the Falcons are the ones that leaked false information just to drive the price up? I suppose. But if the 49ers are to trade for Julio Jones, they do not have any first round draft capital in 2022 or 23 to do it, right? Because they spent that capital on the trade up to number 3 for Trey Lance. So if the 49ers had to, beat out other offers, or if they don't want to give up their remaining draft capital in 2022 or 2023, they could theoretically offer a future first round pick, a 2024 first round pick, right, for Julio Jones. Maybe, they'd rather kind of just kick the can down the road. Maybe that's how they would want to approach this, to beat out the other teams. Maybe not. We'll see what the 49ers' willingness to pay is. I could say this, they're definitely interested. Kyle Shanahan didn't even deny it the other day. Kyle Shanahan's comments before that about Julio Jones, even 3 years ago, all the way up to Michael Irvin's podcast a couple weeks ago. It's just, you just have to use your brain. You just have to connect the dots. The 49ers would love to have Julio Jones if he came for free, right? It's a matter of how much are they willing to pay, both in terms of draft capital and then the salary cap capital. It's a tough situation, guys. The 49ers are really up against it. And, don't look at all this stuff that says they have the fifth most cap room or whatever. Those publications they're not giving you context. They don't get it. The 49ers this season, you can't trust anything right now that doesn't even include Trey Lance's cap hit. I mean, Trey Lance has a big cap hit at $6.2 million for the 2021 season. It's not listed. A lot of times I see somebody tweet about how much cap room the 49ers have. The number is not 17 million. The number is more like 9 or 10 million. It's a lot less because they're going to have to sign all these rookies. So it's not like they're going to leave Trey Lance on the side of the road and not sign him. He's going to take a big bite out of the remaining space they have. And then you have to think about the 2022 space for the 49ers. They already have $194 million in liabilities, and there is going to be a ceiling on the cap. They just announced at $208.2 million. And those $194 million in 2022 liabilities, that's amongst only 35 players. So the 49ers still have to sign at least, 35? That's like something like 20 players, right? 18, yeah. Math is not my strong suit, even though I talk a lot about the salary cap, but there are still 18 players short of a full 53 for that 2022 season. And obviously you have to sign more, but if you're just talking top 51 rule, 53 players, they're going to have to squeeze those 18 signings into 6 plus 8, $14 million of cap space. Does that mean that Jimmy Garoppolo might be gone? Yes, of course, that's possible in 2022 because you could save $26 million through that. That would still open up space. But let me tell you something. Even if Jimmy Garoppolo isn't on the roster in 2022, even if you free up that money, it's still going to be a tight squeeze if you do the math for the 49ers. And given that, it's really hard to restructure a bunch of deals for Julio Jones this year because all that money would get moved into 2022. If that makes sense. You can kick it down the road, but you can't really kick it indefinitely down the road. You have to pay it sometime. And some of it, inevitably, if you give out signing bonuses this year, will hit that 2022 cap, and you will not be able to run from that cap hit. So it's as much about the lack of 22 space as the lack of 2021 space. And that's why I think the 49ers would have to get the Falcons maybe to eat part of Julio Jones' contract or get him to restructure somehow. I'm the one that's advocating for the 49ers to explore every possible option here, but I'm also the person that's telling you the financial realities of this. And, these people who just go out and tweet to the 49ers with $17 million of cap space and Julio Jones has a $15 million salary, they're not getting it. They're being overly simplistic. Julio Jones has a $15 million salary, but the 49ers only have 9 or 10 million of 2021 space. And that's before we even consider paying Fred Warner. And that's before we even consider the restructures that would be necessary to fit Julio Jones into all of that and the 2022 charge where it's already crowded as well. So I wrote the article the other day here. I'll put it up for you. I know that's complicated, but sorry, sometimes we have to get away from the hot take nuances of the Twitter world and actually explain things in depth, because otherwise people are going to get the wrong idea about certain stuff. The Julio Jones article is right here. I'm putting it in the chat. That leads me to the next thing. This is the article that came out today. I wrote about Elijah Mitchell today. Elijah Mitchell is the 49ers' final draft pick of the 2021 class. By the way, I like just kind of sitting back on the couch like this. The first few of these YouTube videos I did kind of like with the camera right in my face. So it's almost more natural. I should just have a beer for some of these and be talking to people just from this couch. I'm in my childhood home right now back in Visalia, and there wasn't really a desk setup that I have at my normal spot. So I think it's better just to do it chill like this. I have the mic clipped onto me, and the sound's good no matter what. And I don't think you guys really care for having the camera all zoomed in anyway. Let me know what you think about some of the little details of these videos. I'm just trying to get better every day with them. I feel that it's been a nice addition. I think we're about to cross 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is really neat. And as soon as I cross 1,000, I could do these off of my phone after practices. I wanted to do one after the 49ers practice on Tuesday, but I couldn't do it because I only had like 700 subscribers. So I tweeted out, "Hey, follow me or subscribe to me on YouTube." And a lot of you did. And I think we're at like 996 now. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and do it right now. I'm not usually one that, tries to push for subscribers, but I really want to get to 1,000 so I could be more flexible and do more of these videos mobile from my phone as well. My favorite beer, I like Pliny the Elder if I could get my hands on it. Pliny the Younger, obviously, is the more rare beer from Russian River Brewing Company, but that one's probably better than Pliny the Elder, but I've only had that like twice in my life. But Pliny the Elder is a little bit more readily available, and it's kind of like a smooth IPA. Sometimes these IPAs get way too soapy for me. I feel that people just try to IPA each other out when they're drinking beer to be more hipster or be, oh, I'm drinking a manlier beer than you, and you end up just putting this hoppy, it's too much in your mouth. And uh, I really like the Russian River beers. The Blind Pig IPA is good too because I feel that you can get that strength of beer without the soapiness. It's smooth at the same time that it's nice and strong, and it tastes like a real beer. So I think that's my favorite beer. My family, my mom's side is from Prague, the Czech Republic, which is essentially the home of beer. More beer is consumed per capita in the world by Czech people than any other country. So anytime I go back to Prague, everybody's drinking way too much beer. It's crazy. It almost makes you want to drink other stuff, but the beer is cheaper than water there. So you just go for it, especially if you're only in town for a weekend or a week, then you'll have as much beer as you can. But yeah, Russian River Brewing Company, good stuff. They're out in Santa Rosa. I think there's a new one now in Healdsburg. I haven't seen it yet. That's a little bit further up from the city. But we'll have to check that out one of these weekends, maybe before 49ers game. My free days are Saturdays before these games. The Niners normally play on Sunday. I'm working really hard all week. I love Saturdays because I can kind of just chill, watch some college football, just get off the grid before the 49ers play. Okay, so back up to that link. It's a few messages up. That's my piece on Elijah Mitchell. I started this talking about Jeff Wilson, who was unfortunately hurt in some kind of freak incident in the locker room when he got up from his chair after talking to a couple of his 49ers teammates, and he felt heard, a pop in his knee, and he tore his meniscus. All of a sudden, Jeff Wilson, who was the 49ers leading rusher in 2020, might not be available until midseason or later for the 49ers in 2021. So they didn't plan this during the draft, but it's a good thing that they picked those two running backs, Trey Sermon in the 3rd round, and Elijah Mitchell in the 6th round. And what really stands out to me about both of these guys is that both of them run with a very similar style as Jeff Wilson. Every time that people talk about the 49ers running game, they think Bobby Turner, they think Kyle Shanahan, they think outside zone, they think speed, right? And I think they, associate that with Raheem Mostert and his huge performance in the NFC Championship game against the Packers a couple years ago. And whereas the 49ers are definitely still focusing on speed. I mean, Trey Sermon was the 2nd fastest 10-yard split time out of all of the drafted running backs, and Elijah Mitchell was the 2nd fastest 40-yard dash time out of all the drafted running backs. I think there has been a concerted, not shift, but a concerted effort to also think about power. And I think that Kyle Shanahan was encouraged to do that based on the success that he saw from Jeff Wilson. Remember Jeff Wilson and his dark place that George Kittle said? I love how Jeff Wilson goes into a dark place and runs people over. That was after the game against New England last year where Jeff Wilson scored 3 touchdowns. What's happening around the National Football League right now is that teams are becoming worse and worse at tackling. Defenses are getting faster and faster. That also means that in general, they're getting smaller. And I think this extra emphasis on athleticism and on speed to combat these spread offenses and everything that the Shanahans and the McVays and the Floors are doing, I think that's taken a little bit away from the fundamental aspect of how well teams tackle. And I think that you've seen the 49ers try to establish a comparative advantage offensively over the past couple years, and they've done it first and foremost through their receivers, through the yak monsters, right? Yards after the catch. They're trying to take advantage of the fact that a lot of these defensive backs and linebackers are smaller. So, heavy runners like Deebo Samuel, a heavy runner like Jalen Hurd. We haven't seen him yet, but that preseason game against the Cowboys a couple of years ago was impressive. You look at those types of players. George Kittle obviously is a big yak guy. He led the league in yak in 2018. Those guys are there to take advantage of the fact that the league is not tackling as well. I think that's where Jeff Wilson made a lot of his bread and butter in 2020. And I think that's exactly where the 49ers are going with these new running backs. Trey Sermon, who invites contact, and Elijah Mitchell, who in the very first play of his highlight reel bulldozes a guy and invites contact too. So that's the theme that I really dove into with these two articles, and you could still subscribe to The Athletic. I'm going to post the Trey Sermon one now too, so you have that. And I really think there's something to this theme. I mean, it's been corroborated by the 49ers coaching staff, but even more importantly than the coaching staff, it's been corroborated by the people who I talked to who developed and coached these players in college football. These people talk to Bobby Turner. These people talk to Kyle Shanahan. These people know what the 49ers are looking for in the draft more than what Shanahan and Bobby Turner will say in a standard press conference. So what you have here is the 49ers looking for that physicality, looking for that attitude. And if you go to the Trey Sermon article, which I just posted there on the link, I mean, he has just a mind-blowing story. So much adversity that he came through. But there's also some really heartwarming parts to Trey Sermon's story. And they somehow tie to the fact that he's just such a bruising runner on the football field. I mean, as a 5-year-old, Trey Sermon was out there playing flag football, but he was tackling people. He was running kids over to the point where they're like, you can't do this. You can't hurt the other 5-year-olds. He just didn't get it. He kept on tackling people because that was, he was just built different. He was built for that physical contact that the 49ers actually are currently looking for now, 20 years later. So they try to scare Trey Sermon. They try to move him up to the 7-year-old division. He had to play with these older kids. And he puts the pads on because he wanted to tackle people. He just said, Mom, I want to hit somebody. And here you have this 5-year-old, and he's on kick coverage down in Tampa, Florida, and he is sprinting down the field against a 7-year-old returner, against 7-year-old blockers, kids that are bigger than him, right? And Trey Sermon, as a 5-year-old, just lays him out. First kick coverage, first actual tackle football with pads on of his life, just destroys this kid. And he starts doing it over and over again. Every phase of the game, he's running people over. And in SEC country, they have PA announcers at these football games for 6- and 7-year-olds at the Pop Warner level. And they started calling Trey Sermon the Terminator. They missed an opportunity. They should have called him the Sermonator. I get it. But he got the nickname of the Terminator playing as a 5-year-old. And then you watch Trey Sermon's film, and you get it. Like 20 years later, he's still playing the same way. He broke Eddie George's single-game record at Ohio State by rushing for, 331 yards in the Big Ten championship game. And this guy is actually looking for defensive backs down the field, hunting them down, looking for contact. How often do you see a running back looking for contact to destroy a guy with a stiff arm? That's impressive. At the Big Ten level, that's something that really just stood out to me. And yes, he's not going to be doing that as much at the NFL level. Guys are going to be bigger. That might not be, the exact style that you want to play with. You can't really mess with a college defensive back, NFL defensive back the same way that you can with a Northwestern defensive back. But there is something to be said about a couple things. The first is the defensive backs at the NFL level are much worse tacklers than you think because of the reasons I outlined a little bit earlier. And two, it's more about mentality than it is about an actual specific highlight play translating over to the NFL level. Everything at the NFL level is going to be different, right? So that's why you want to find a guy that's run the outside zone scheme that knows cerebrally a lot of what has to happen. I think that's really important because you want to port it as much of it as closely as possible to the NFL, but you're not ever going to port college game and college skills to the NFL cleanly when you make the projection. It's all going to be at least a little bit of a projection at some point. So because of that, that's why you do the deep dive on these players, and you do the deep dive on what's in here. What's there mentally? What are they made of? What's their why? And when you have guys running the football, hunting down defenders on the field, playing running back with a linebacker's mentality, then it's a situation where it's you know that guy is going to be playing with that desire and that want to at the NFL level. Okay, so I think that's why Trey Sermon's background is so fascinating. It's like a 3,000 word feature story. I mean, it gets poignant. That there's some tragedy that happens in his life, and he's overcome so much. So make sure to check that one out. I put a lot into that, and I mean, it ends in such a way that's almost like scripted. You feel. But his mom, when she was holding Trey as a baby, Trey Sermon, that is, not Trey Lance, in the hospital. He was a day old when the Broncos were playing the Falcons in the Super Bowl. It's January 1999. And she kind of kissed him on the forehead, turned the baby toward the TV. And, she just felt something special about Trey. And she felt that he was going to be a special football player. She named him Trey because it was a football name. And she said, that's going to be you one day, when he was looking at the TV as a one-day-old. And guess who was the coach in that Super Bowl? The coach was Mike Shanahan. Guess who the running backs coach was? It was Bobby Turner. And the MVP was Terrell Davis, who obviously was the prototypical first Shanahan-Turner running back, which was phenomenal there. So 20 years later, Trey Sermon is going to be playing for, or now he is playing for, Bobby Turner. Quite the ending to a pretty cool story. So let's move on to Elijah Mitchell now. I'm going to repaste this one that came out today. I don't know if the dollar sale is still on. If it's not, you get this for like $3.99 a month. And people in the comment section, I hope for those who are skeptical, you can kind of chime in here and say that it's worth it. I mean, I have sat here after the draft and I've written features about almost every single 49ers draftee. And there was a big group of them this year, and we're not even a month after the draft yet. So I don't think you can find this stuff anywhere else, guys. I really think you should subscribe through one of these articles. I mean, these are deep dive features. I've talked to the coaches, the family members, the teammates of these players. And yes, I have one on Trey Lance too. Yes, I have one on Ambry Thomas. You guys need to check out The Athletic because it's the only place that you're going to get this kind of stuff. But the Elijah Mitchell one that came out today, you'll see a lot of parallels to the Trey Sermon story as far as their football skills. I mean, Elijah Mitchell runs like a grown man. The staff at Louisiana for the Raging Cajuns loves him. His running backs coach, Jabbar Jaluki at Louisiana, was actually Leonard Fournette's running backs coach at LSU. So they watched a lot of Leonard Fournette film to get Elijah Mitchell going. And, the reason why these deep dives are so important is a lot of people on Twitter just say, oh, Elijah Mitchell's a great athlete. He had the same athleticism score from NFL Next Gen Stats as Travis Etienne out of Clemson. And yes, Elijah Mitchell's an extremely impressive athlete. It shocks me that he was still available in the 6th round. I think the 49ers were shocked too. But this is not just about the fact that he has the second fastest 40 time of all the running backs. If you put on the film and you talk to the people who actually, developed Elijah Mitchell, they talk about a physical guy who's running people over. So this is not your old, 2017 Shanahan 49ers drafting a Joe Williams just because he could run fast to the edge. They are getting bruisers. And they're getting these bruisers to operate behind big offensive linemen in Jalen Moore and Aaron Banks. I should probably list them the other way around. Aaron Banks is going to start this year in all likelihood. Jalen Moore, maybe there's a starting spot for him the year after that. But the 49ers are trying to get nasty with that run game. And take a look at that Elijah Mitchell article. There's some good stuff. One of the real nuggets that I like is there's not a lot of negative plays with Elijah Mitchell. He can also return kicks. He had 600 touches at Louisiana in college. One fumble in 600 touches. So, a guy that's made out of the right, stuff, doesn't fumble, is physical, is fast. His college coach said that this kid's a tough kid. He's from Erath, Louisiana, grew up in a rural setting. He'll show up at the complex in jeans and boots on. He's been out at the farm. This is a no-nonsense family. This guy was raised the right way. The way that I see this, without Jeff Wilson now for at least the start of the season, is obviously Raheem Mostert as the veteran leader of the 49ers running backs room. Wayne Gallman is the number 2 just right now, as Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell learn the playbook. But all 4 of those guys make the 53-man roster. And guess what? Wayne Gallman was an impressive player, but he's a veteran for the New York Giants over the past couple of years. He's another guy that runs a lot bigger than you think he runs based on his size. I mean, he was bowling over some defenders, moving some piles. I think that Wayne Gallman, as a veteran, probably has the initial edge over Sermon and Mitchell. But as we know, the Turner running backs room, the Shanahan running backs room, those guys are going to rotate. We're going to see all of those guys get some action in this 2021 season. And boy, the 49ers should be excited about guys like Trey Sermon and Elijah Mitchell. All right, I'm going to take some questions here. I'm going down to San Diego for Memorial Day weekend, so I'm going to be leaving here in a little bit. Does Hasty get put on the practice squad? Yeah. So, I mean, if we're going to make the projection right now, I think that JaMycal Hasty is going to be on the practice squad, but you have to remember, Jeff Wilson got hurt, before OTAs even started? So we still have 3/4 of OTAs to go, veteran minicamp to go, and training camp to go. And you're telling me that another 49ers running back won't at least get dinged up? I mean, I would love that. I think everybody who likes sports would love that, for injuries to just magically disappear, especially from this football team. But is that realistic? I don't think it is. So there's a good chance that JaMycal Hasty makes the 53-man roster, even if, the pecking order proceeds as it currently is, and he's currently the last one on it. So I would not give up on JaMycal Hasty, and I'm sure the 49ers aren't either. They have to hope that another team doesn't grab him, though, if they put him on the practice squad. All right. Yeah, Jawan Jennings is tough. You're talking about that. I'm just going back and looking through the comments right now. My cold water therapy. Oh, it's 55 degrees in New Zealand, huh? Cool. The water's warming up here in California, which is nice. It's probably around 55 up at the lake. I'm not there right now. I'm going to go in the ocean by San Diego this week. If anybody has any good San Diego recommendations, I'm pretty familiar with town, but if you have any good San Diego, Fallbrook, Escondido area recommendations, I would absolutely love to hear them. Let's see. Oh, yeah. One more thing. A lot of you just started following me over the past couple of years. The audience has grown a lot. If you weren't aboard before the Super Bowl during the 2019 season, I wrote one of my biggest pieces on Jimmy Garoppolo's upbringing in Chicago. It is now linked there on the right. There is a reason that everybody's starting to talk about how good the dynamic in the 49ers quarterback room is, how great of a leader Jimmy Garoppolo is, how well he's going to be meshing with Trey Lance, and how this is giving people great vibes about the 2021 49ers, about how much cohesion there is. And one thing that annoys me is when people act surprised by this. I mean, if people had done the reporting earlier, if we had kind of paid attention earlier, and I did, there's the link to Jimmy Garoppolo in that 2019 season, instead of just bashing the guy when he was actually putting together one of the more efficient seasons in the NFL, you would know that Jimmy Garoppolo really is a guy that binds the locker room together. Natural charisma, natural leadership skills that goes back to his upbringing in suburban Chicago with some really fantastic anecdotes and stories. And that goes all the way through his time as an FCS quarterback, just like Trey Lance, not heavily recruited, how to work for everything that he got, blue collar. That has earned respect in the locker room. And that's why we shouldn't be surprised that this 49ers quarterback situation is being handled so well. There's a lot of stupid criticism by people that I won't name in like February and March on Twitter about, the 49ers aren't handling the quarterback situation well. They're being too quiet about it. They're letting rumors bleed. People don't care what you think on Twitter. People don't care what I think on Twitter or what I say on YouTube that are actually inside the building. Yeah, they might laugh at some stuff that people tweet out there, but the way that an NFL team works, they're going to work the way that they have to build the best roster possible. And the 49ers quarterback situation ended up pretty damn good. If I have to say so myself. You end up with both Jimmy Garoppolo, who's been a top 10 efficiency guy, and Trey Lance, who they think can be their transcendent quarterback of the future. They found a way to fit both of them on the cap, and now they have a 5 QB room, which looks hilariously crowded at practice. And everything worked out with everybody getting along. Jimmy Garoppolo happy. Trey Lance obviously thrilled to be there. I mean, what did they do wrong? Let's go back to all those people trying to tweet stuff that didn't make any sense in February. Kind of call me a homer, too. One of those guys did in February because I said, maybe you should just wait to see how this plays out. So many people got so far ahead of themselves thinking that they have some kind of criticism figured out when they didn't have anything figured out. And now we see a good-looking 49ers quarterback room. And we're going to wait until this season plays out, until 22 plays out, 2023 plays out, to see how this is going to work in the long term. It's not always about, let me get this out first so I could have some kind of take and be out in front of something. Because as you've seen over the past few months, the people that try to do that, they end up being the ones that are wrong. And it looks really bad in hindsight. So the 49ers quarterback room looks very nice. They have to develop it. They have to find that camaraderie in the room, but it looks like it's headed that way. And that's why I wanted to point you back to that article about Jimmy Garoppolo from 2019, because that goes into the salt of the earth kind of character that we've seen guys like George Kittle respond to in the locker room, guys like Kyle Juszczyk respond to in the locker room. And guess what? I think Trey Lance is going to respond to it too. I think the whole team can respond to it. And you are better with two very good quarterbacks instead of one. And we don't even know if Trey Lance is going to be a very good quarterback yet. That's another thing. That is the hope. I think he could be transcendent. I predicted that the 49ers would pick Trey Lance throughout the whole process because I thought that he was the transcendent talent that Kyle Shanahan was looking for. But that doesn't mean that I know Trey Lance is going to be great. And that also doesn't mean that Kyle Shanahan knows that Trey Lance is going to be great. And Kyle Shanahan himself has acknowledged this most recently on Michael Irvin's podcast. So that's why Jimmy Garoppolo's there. That's why you carry two. That's why you deepen the room. They killed a whole bunch of birds with one stone with that draft of Trey Lance and that trade up to get him at number 3. And now they move forward, strengthened in the quarterback room. And a lot of that criticism from the last few months sure seems ridiculous and sure was ridiculous at the time, as we try to point out. All right, I'm going to answer a couple questions and I'm going to go because I've been on for 33 minutes. Yeah, McGlinchey does look a little bit better. That's one of the questions. Will he anchor better this year? The 49ers sure hope so. I think with Mike McGlinchey, you were hoping that Alex Mack at center and Aaron Banks, his former Notre Dame teammate at right guard, really help by extension. They help that right tackle position by extension. So McGlinchey gets a little bit better, already a really good run blocker. Now he can anchor a little bit better, but so much of what happens along the offensive line is directed by that traffic controller at the center position. And Alex Mack is one of the best to have ever done it. He's certainly the best to have ever done it in the Shanahan system. So Alex Mack, I think, can make all of the offensive linemen better. And I think you're going to see a good year out of Mike McGlinchey because of the combination of those factors. I think that's why the 49ers picked up his option. That's my prediction on that one. The OTA has not been open to the media today. No, I'll be back out there next Wednesday. So have a nice long Memorial Day weekend. I'll post a couple more videos from when I was out there. I don't really have a receiver that's impressed me the most yet because the 49ers have run a total of 1 11-on-11 drill. I also have a piece on their undrafted free agent, Austin Watkins, that'll be coming up here in a couple of weeks. So all of those links on the side, check them all out. We got features on Trey Sermon, Elijah Mitchell that came out today, Jimmy Garoppolo, obviously, from 2019. Subscribe to The Athletic. Check them out. You're going to get deeper into this 49ers team than you can anywhere else. And obviously, I also read a lot about Julio Jones over the last couple of weeks. We'll see if that happens. I don't think it's likely, but I think it's definitely worth covering much more seriously than it has been covered because he is the Shanahan prototype at wide receiver. Him and Andrew Johnson him and Andre Johnson from the Texans are those two prototypes. And if the 49ers can fit him, boy, that offense would be unstoppable. Any more questions? One more, and then I'll go. If I don't get one in 20 seconds, I'm going. I'm going down to San Diego. People are asking me, am I a beer of choice? Do you think Arden Key could be a breakout player from earlier? Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I'm not as bullish on Arden Key as you are, but hey, Chris Kasurik has made a lot of guys look good, so possibly leaving the door open to Arden Key, and I think he'll make the team. The 49ers gave him some guaranteed money, so I think he'll make the team. I feel like I'm way bigger on Wayne Gallman than most. What do you like about him? I love the fact that Wayne Gallman isn't all that heavy, but he runs and moves piles. I mean, he's a physical runner. He's smart, knows how to attack zone runs, and he's physical. So I just like the veteran presence, the tough veteran that Wayne Gallman brings. Is Elijah Mitchell roster lock? If he stays healthy, I think that he'll almost certainly make it. Nobody's a lock, though, as we've seen, because you can get up in the locker room and tear your meniscus. Comeback player for the 49ers, Garoppolo. I think he's set for his comeback year. 1,000 subscribers accomplished. Great. Awesome. Thanks. Well, that's a good note to end on. Deebo Samuel looked pretty good the other day. He caught the first passes for both Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance at practice. Subscribe. Thanks for pushing me over 1,000. Hope you enjoyed it today. I will do one of these after practice now with the mobile version of my phone. Now that I'm over 1,000 and YouTube will let me. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great Memorial Day weekend.